This is TFWIRE, Transformers Week in Review, episode 204, recorded August 13th, 2016. Greetings, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am your host for this episode of the TFWIRE podcast. It has been almost 5 years since the last TFWIRE podcast came out. Episode 203 was recorded on December 18th, 2011, in which I hosted that episode alone and was talking about Transformers and the upcoming holiday or Christmas season. And we're talking about Transformers to buy. We're talking about people's memories of getting Transformers for Christmas. And I actually took some listener feedback on that particular episode with some phone calls. In particular, the one person I can remember for sure was Bob Marley. So shout out to Bob Marley. Woo! All right, so I've got a couple of news topics I'd like to discuss here in this episode. And then I have an ancient listener question. When I get to that, any of you listeners out there are going to find that pretty funny. And then I have a food for thought topic that I want to throw out there just to get everyone's feedback on. But again, before we get to that, I do have two news topics that I want to hit on for this particular week. So the first one is Transformers the movie celebrates 30 years. So the movie was originally released on August 8th, 1986. This is August 13th, so that 30th anniversary just happened a couple days ago. The movie is getting a 30th anniversary Blu-ray and DVD remastered release on September 13th, and that will include both the 4x3 as well as the widescreen version of the film. I also believe that this is coming out on the digital formats as well, which I've been looking for it on, Vudu, looking for it on Amazon. It's currently not there, so I'm happy to see that it will be released on those platforms as well. Now, I currently own, I want to say 4, maybe 5 versions of this film. I know I own at least 2 on VHS. One is the American release, one's the Canadian release, and I own 2 of the DVDs. So the question is, if you own those, should you splurge and buy this yet again for, how many dips is this at this point? Certainly more than 2. This is like the 6th dip, 7th dip, something like that. Well, I guess it really depends on, what you want to get out of it. There are some new special features in here, including a commentary for the film, with the director, the story, who is it? The story, I lost his name on here. The story consultant, there we go. As well as Sue Blue, who voiced RC in the film. So that's kind of cool. There's a behind-the-scenes documentary. So there are some new things here. I just don't know if I can, justify in throwing down the cash for yet another version of this film. But I'm happy to see that it does have a 4K restoration, which is fantastic. So hopefully the next time they release this for the 35th and the 40th anniversary, they'll just kind of clean it up a little bit more if they need to be, or if it needs to be. But, at 4K, I don't really know how much cleaner you're going to get. So, but it seems like with each release of the film, we're getting, a better version. So who knows? 40th anniversary, maybe it'll be in some sort of 3D hologram projection or something. So, and again, the Blu-ray and DVD comes out on September 30th. So if you don't own the film, or if you want like a 6th or 7th copy of it, be sure to head out to, wherever you buy media here at this point in 2016, because you'll be able to pick up your copy. All right, so the second news topic I wanted to hit on is the Transformers 5 Megatron design has been revealed. Now, if you're following any of the Transformer news sites, the movie studio is releasing I guess what are essentially these character cards showing off some of the robot modes of the upcoming, from the upcoming Transformers movie. And the one they have here of Megatron, first of all, how is Megatron still a thing? Because in Age of Extinction, they had his head, but they kind of used pieces of him, or essentially his essence, and turned him into Galvatron. And now he's back as Megatron. So this is going to be interesting. But I'm really digging his design here. He's got what looks like, you know, your typical Megatron-esque cannon on his arm. Why it's on his right arm as opposed to his left arm, not quite sure. But he's also holding, which looks like some sort of battle axe, which is pretty cool. Now, there's no hint of what his alternate mode might be here. However, if you look at his chest, it almost appears as though there's some sort of, I want to say almost like a dragon head inside there. Like it would, you know, his chest would open up and the dragon head would essentially fold up to replace his robot head. I mean, I am seeing a very dragon-esque looking type of head there. Now, if it isn't that, I'm going to assume he's going to turn into some sort of jet. Because you could also say that that's like sort of a jet cockpit looking type design. But I want to say it's almost like a dragon. I don't see any wings or anything on here on this particular design, but I mean, just look at this picture and you'll see that you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I will have a link here in the show notes or in the YouTube description here. So if you want to check it out, just go ahead and follow that link and you can see for yourself there. All right, so that's it for the news for this week. I want to say the news was kind of light. I just did a quick search of the Transformer news sites, and nothing really big jumped out at me. So I just grabbed a couple of the news items that I wanted to touch on. So there were those. All right, so on to a listener question that I have. And if you remember from what I noted at the top of the show, this is going to be great for anyone who is a fan of the podcast. So this was submitted on January 23rd of 2006. And this was submitted by none other than Matt Spada back when he was just a listener to the podcast, not when he was actually a host. And he submitted an email to our Gmail, TFWIRE@gmail.com, by the way. And the email included 6 different questions, and I believe, I know for a fact that we used some of his questions at the time, but I don't think that we used all of them. So I pulled one of these questions from there, and he's going to hate me for this, but I don't care because I'm gonna ask it. His question was, what car would Hasbro curse by making an Alternator of Wheelie into? And I've been thinking about this, and I still cannot think, or there's still nothing that comes to my mind that we haven't already talked about when it comes to Wheelie. But in thinking now, I would almost say, you know, just based on the name, and again, this isn't going to be a car. This is more of along the lines of like a motorcycle. But the best thing I can think of is like a Polaris Spider. And if you're not quite sure what those are, you can go out to Google and look them up. But they're essentially like a snowmobile that has wheels instead of treads, and the skis in the front. So instead of the skis in the front, it's got wheels, and then it's got one big wheel in the back. And I guess this sort of falls in the lines of like a motorcycle, but it doesn't handle at all like a motorcycle. I've ridden one of these, I've driven one of these, and it's sort of like its own unique type thing. But I could easily see the Wheelie character, you know, especially going off from that name, using some sort of vehicle alt mode that's similar to the Polaris Spider. Although I want to say the Polaris Spider is a bit too quote unquote cool for the Wheelie character, but that's the type of automobile that I could see Hasbro making Wheelie into for the Alternators line. So, man, the Alternators line, that was so long ago. So moving on to the last thing I have for this episode. Again, I'm going to keep this episode really short. Just going to throw this out there just to get people's feedback and reaction. But the last thing I want to hit on is a food for thought question that I had just popping around in my head. And mainly I got the idea for this question by looking at the Transformer news sites, looking at the stuff that came out of Comic-Con and things like that. But so my question is, why is Hasbro essentially, quote unquote, remaking G1 for their new toy lines? So they started with the combiners. So, an entire toy line of nothing but combiners. And now they're moving to essentially the headmasters. And it's not the fact that they're reusing, the gimmicks from G1. That's fine. But the toys they're making, they look very G1-esque. And in some cases, they're actually essentially just recreating those toys. Especially when you look at like the Headmaster figures from the current toy line. I don't know why they're doing this, but the thing that comes to mind, I don't know for certain why they're doing this, but the thing that comes to my mind as a reason to why they may be doing this is because kids are not buying these toys anymore. I can walk into any of the stores here in my area, in particular Target, for example, and there's like one row, like vertical row or one vertical column. That's essentially, just one row of Transformer toys on the pegs. And that's it. And in fact, here at my local Target, the area they've designated for the Transformers, there's a big-ass pillar, support pillar for the store running directly in front of that area. So you actually have to go, sidestep the pillar and look behind it to see any of the Transformers that are on the pegs there. That's how little they care about this toy line. And, I see that in other stores as well. Meijer here in my area, even in my local Toys R Us, there's like hardly any Transformer toys at all. And the ones that are there, they're, relatively old. And I just don't see kids buying these at all. So my thought is that the reason they're reusing these gimmicks from G1, the reason they're recreating the new toys to look like the G1 toys is essentially to sell to collectors. Because I don't think, like I said, kids are buying these toys. Now, yes, there is the Robots in Disguise cartoon that's out there currently. I believe my nephew watches that. He also watches Rescue Bots. But he's not buying the toys. He does enjoy and appreciate some of the Transformer toys. And he does have some of the Combiner Wars figures because he really liked those. But those are still a little too complicated for him to transform, especially the Optimus Prime. But yeah, he's just not into buying these things. And he's 7.5. He's going on 8. And his interest, I think, in these are just waning. And really, I think his interest in Transformers was generated from the fact that I was into Transformers, and he's seen my collection, and he really likes them, I guess, because I like them. He's watched my toy reviews on YouTube. He's done his own toy reviews, which is absolutely hilarious and cute and all of that. But like I said, I think the reason Hasbro was going down this path is essentially just to appease and appeal to collectors. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that. So, go ahead, hit me up in the comments here on YouTube, and let me know your thoughts to this particular question. All right, so that's it for this episode of TFWIRE. Again, this was a quickie, but just want to throw this out there, get people's reactions and feedback, and so that's exactly what I'm doing. So until next time, this is Jesse signing off.
No, I'm not your enemy. I'm not a spy. I am on your side, but you hang me out to dry.